I can imagine. How do you help boomers achieve their goals?
Well, I like to think that I will help them achieve that goal, and part of that is having listened and doing that analysis is figuring out what is the pot of money that we're dealing with. Will they be taking all their equity to the next property? Will they be taking a little bit of it and putting it into a smaller property? Or maybe they've been there so long their house is appreciated greatly, and so they can buy up, but we figure that out. We also start by wishing. This is something that I learned from my husband that he does with his clients. You make a wish list. You talk about everything in the world you want in the next property, and then we try to turn that into a reality. I try to help them envision where they are today and where they're going to be in the future, because at this point, very few of my clients know that in the beginning. They have a guesstimate, they don't have a firm roadmap, and so I try to help them with that roadmap. And what that does is that tries to give them a smooth transition from one place to the next, or maybe one place to two places. So, you know, we see. And then we talk about where we're going from, you know, where they are now to where they need to go next.
Some excellent pointers there.
Thank you.
Now, this I'm very curious about, thinking about my own life. Do most boomers downsize? Do they make lateral moves? What's more common for this group?
Well, I would say that the majority of the people do downsize, because clearly when you have a house full of children and you're growing into you know, the new stages of family life, you will certainly have rooms that you don't need necessarily in the next stage. But it's not always downsizing in terms of a physical square footage. Sometimes it's just a different need. For example, you may have needed a formal dining room when your parents gave you the job of Thanksgiving, or holidays, other holidays, or you and your friends gathered with extended families and you needed that big kitchen in addition. Now what you need is, and you can call it downsizing, but it may not really be downsizing. It may be just a change of what it is. You may just want a very well-appointed kitchen that spills out into a smaller dining space, but is equally or even more equipped. Sometimes people are looking for finer details. They just don't need as great a space. Sometimes they're going to want to design their new kitchen so that it has every special thing. This picture that you're seeing now is one of my clients who had the opportunity to design exactly what she wanted, right down to the shape of her island, and that was the fun for her. Sometimes you don't need the playhouse anymore that the kids are running around in, and you don't want to take that to the apartment in the city. So, you know, that's not really downsizing, it's just trading what you need. Maybe you no longer need your large porch to go with that big piece of land. Maybe what you're doing now is you're giving up the porch, you're giving up that big front-to-back living room, and what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I want a dynamite kitchen that's open to my fireplace, that's a gas fireplace. I don't want log wood anymore, and I just want to hang out at the island with friends, and I want to go out for takeout, or I want to go, you know, I want to bop to the movies, make it easier, or I want to meet my friends on the golf course. So that's some of what we do at this point.
Excellent. I'm also wondering, do you primarily list properties, or do you also sell properties, and how does that balance work?
Well, that's a great question. In a perfect world, I get to do both. If you call me, Leslie, and you say, I don't want to be in my 4-bedroom home anymore, but I want to stay in the Andover area, then I can help you with both of those. You may decide that you're going to North Carolina, or you may decide that you have friends on the other side of the country. I could help you find a realtor over there.
Gotcha. When you're working with clients, what are the real basic nuts and bolts of transitioning?
Well, the basic nuts and bolts are that first involve finding out who the people are who are going to help you with it. Very often when my clients don't have a good handle on the financial piece of it, I will have them talk to their financial advisor. Sometimes I find out they don't have a financial advisor. I will have them talk to a stager. I will have them talk to a variety of people so that we can get down to that nuts and bolts of what's really involved. And then what we do is we make a list. You know, I'm a big list maker. I like them to feel that they're in control, and I like to understand where we are in the process. So we figure out what's coming first. It's really a flow chart, and it's different for every single client.
Excellent. I'm going to be needing some of that myself, I'm sure.
Well, you can call me when you're ready.
I've read in the papers about buyers versus sellers agency. Mm-hmm. Is that an important concept that we need to understand the difference?
Well, I think that is. It's very important because with buyer and seller agency, it is something that boomers particularly never experienced when they bought their first or their second or even their third home, because it is a newer concept. Probably when you bought your home, you never heard the words buyer agent.
No.
A seller agent is someone who represents the seller who's selling their property. And a buyer's agent is someone who has a contractual relationship with their agent, which means that there's confidentiality. The agent has a fiduciary responsibility to the buyer. And I could give you a whole course in this.
I see.
But it's very important to know that the person who's showing the property to the buyer does not represent the seller. You have your listing agent, your seller agent. And when buyers go out and look, they want someone to represent them, generally speaking.
That makes sense. Yeah. Looking at the enormous process, how would you describe a smooth transition, and what would you like to leave people with as, you know, the most important fundamentals?
Well, I think a smooth transition is one where you have a happy person at the end. There are stressor points as you go along, but if the people understand that it is a process, and sometimes there are some hiccups along the way, you may have to decide that you found the person who will buy your house and they have cash in hand, but they want to move in 2 weeks. Now that's a stressor.
Yeah.
But we can find them something temporary, and that's a great problem to have because then they have cash in pocket. But if it's someone who's building a property down the road, we may have to have an interim housing because it may not be ready. So whatever I can do to help that client understand what the process is and that they really do have some control over the process, I think they will feel better. And the goal is that when they get there, they're going to love it. They're going to say, why didn't I do this sooner?
Is there a story that exemplifies that wonderful transition?
Well, there's a man I'm married to who didn't want to move. And I wanted to move earlier. And we were rattling around in our 10-room house with our 2 cats. And both our children were married. And he said, find me something and I will move there. And I found him a beautiful property in Andover, and it was going to be built, and we designed it ourselves, and now we're not cutting the lawn. And now we can walk into town, and I love my kitchen, and I come home happy every day, and that's a happy ending.
It sure
So
is.
I'm a boomer, and I'm happy.
And now we're fortunate to have with us Andover native and journalist Eszter Vajda, with us today to give a summary of Boomer real estate. Welcome, Esther.
Thanks, Leslie. Boomers, you are very different than your parents' generation. You will be the largest aging population in U.S. history, living longer, working longer, and facing far different challenges. National figures show that seniors are less likely to relocate for retirement, more likely to continue working, and that not all communities are ready for the surge in seniors. More on that in a little bit. But first, if you are planning to relocate, I found several surveys listing top places for retirement. And no, they are not all located in places like Florida or the Carolinas. So here are two lists. First is a survey commissioned by the Bankers Life and Casualty Company Center for Secure Retirement. Top of that list, Minneapolis, Minnesota, followed by Boston, Massachusetts, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Cleveland, Ohio, and Denver, Colorado. Fifth is Milwaukee, Wisconsin, San Francisco, California, Portland, Oregon, Kansas City, Missouri, and Newark, New Jersey rounded off that list. It's important to make sure that you pay attention what they used in the account and what standards they use when choosing this list. First and foremost is healthcare, a no-brainer. This means widespread availability of physicians, especially specializing in geriatric issues. Then the economy, like how much are taxes and the cost of living. Third is health and longevity. The study looked at such things as depression and mortality rates from cancer and heart disease. There's also the environment, like the number of sunny days per year, local air and water quality, presence and accessibility of bodies of water and parks also play a role in this rundown. The survey also ranked cities according to spiritual life, crime, and housing. Now, here's another list, and this one is compiled by U.S. News using data from Onboard Informatics. First, Flagstaff, Arizona. Second, Boone, North Carolina. Traverse City, Michigan, Walnut Creek, California, Ithaca, New York are next. Then, Lincoln, Nebraska, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Port Charlotte, Florida, Pittsfield, Massachusetts, Santa Fe, New Mexico finished the top 10 list. For this survey, they considered weather, affordable housing, and amenities available for seniors, plus fun things to do recreationally, culturally, and socially. Now, interestingly, but not surprisingly, they also take into account whether the location offers second career opportunities and transitional educational institutions. The bottom line is that there are lots of lists out there using different criteria, and some factors may not be that obvious. Like, did you know that a survey done by the National Association of Area Agencies on Aging shows that most communities across the country are not prepared for the onslaught of aging generation? For instance, they lack public transportation or even sidewalks. The bottom line is that you, as a consumer, have to take into account what is important to you as you retire. And it's not just one parameter. It's taking a holistic approach to ensure that your golden years are truly happy and healthy. Now I want to know what you think. Feel free to email me at estherandvajda@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. Leslie, back to you.
Thank you for joining us today, and hope to see you next time on Boomer Being.